You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where, using a number generator and the Rate Your Music punk charts, we choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. Continue to follow us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Punk Lotto Pod. Our email is punklautopod@gmail.com, and our website is punklautopod.simplecast.fm. All our episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher, and please rate, review, and subscribe because it really helps people find us on the charts. So today we are joined by a special guest. So who are you and what do you do?
My name is Josh Robbins, and I run the label Self-Aware Records, and I play in the bands All Right and Late Bloomer.
Awesome. You just got back from tour, didn't you?
Yes.
How'd that go?
It was good. It was very hot. We didn't have AC in the van. It was a 2-week tour, and it was a week after so that tour was with All Right, and it was a week after a West Coast tour with Late Bloomers. That was like another 2 weeks, a little under. So yeah, a lot of touring.
Yeah.
For me, I know people have done longer, but it's a little bit for me, and we kind of split up. At the beginning of the year, we kind of just said, do we do like a couple long tours, or do we split it up into a few tours over a year, over the year, instead of so it makes us look more active.
Yeah.
I don't know which one is better, really, like looking back at it. It's like, do you want to be home more often and kind of gone longer but be home more, or I don't know. Starting to lean toward the other. I don't know the right answer.
Yeah.
Both bad. Both bad on your bank account.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I follow you on social media and I keep seeing like, wow, he's on the road again. Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny. I went
out in a couple weeks, but yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I went to Lunchbox Records the other day and I bought a Best Practices LP, the EP LP, and the Sea of Storms album.
Mm-hmm. And
I took them to the register, and your bandmate and Late Bloomer, Scott, runs Lunchbox, and he saw what I was buying. He's like, "Do you know Josh?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Because the only people who know Josh would be buying these two records."
Oh, man. Well, Paul, too. Paul.
Yeah, for sure.
Paul was your last guest. So that's more up his alley. I guess it's the Venn diagram is very large between the two.
Right.
But Best Practices. I didn't listen to that episode yet, but it was his old band. And yeah, Sea of Storms. That's the only vinyl. They have a new full length that just came out. Sea of Storms too. But
yeah.
I don't think it's out on vinyl. We didn't put it out. But yeah, the other one, Paul helped put out too. It was a joint effort between both labels. It's a great record. It just, for some reason, didn't catch on. I feel like it's legitimately, they toured a bunch before the record came out and then just stopped touring. So
you'd think that, like, even with kind of like their background and what other bands they'd been in, that, they would have taken off a little more, but it was interesting. You didn't see a lot of press about it, but...
Well, it's just funny because it was like when that, I'm not going to like name names for press and stuff like that, but it was kind of like, I can do press on, I basically try and do press on most of the releases that come out on Self-Aware, But sometimes I give the bands the option, like, hey, I'll do it. But, you know, there are people that actually do that for a living. If you feel like you have the budget for it, you know, it may be, you know, helpful for y'all as a band. It doesn't necessarily directly help me, but I mean, in a way it does. But in more directly, I think it helps the bands more than it helps that specific release. And they did actually pay for PR from a reputable company. But the company didn't do anything, and we ended up I ended up getting them like a full stream somewhere, and they got some of a refund on what it was like. You didn't do like anything.
Yeah.
And this was like a legit PR firm that does good work for people. So it's hard to say with PR though. It's like really the dumbest thing, but it's like when it works, it's like that PR person seems like a genius. But anytime I've kind of talked to them directly, they're like, I don't know, man. You know,
it seems like it's mostly just pitching stuff. So
it's pitching, and it's just like a lot of it's like luck. It's kind of like you hit that writer on a week where they need to make, you know, a little bit of money, and then their publisher says, yes, I'll run that story. So if you can get all of that lined up, sometimes it's that. I mean, there are legit things like, you know, if that same PR company does a job for Circa Survive, then it's going to be a home run. You know, I think that is actually one of their clients. So I just narrowed it down.
So if you know like, your PR firms.
I mean, I don't think people do, so it doesn't. You know, but it's like I don't necessarily even know if they didn't do anything. That's the thing I was telling Sea of Storms. It's like it's really hard to say. Yeah. Like I've done press for bands that aren't on the label, and then I'm like, ooh, I can show you where I did the work, but we just didn't get anything. But I don't charge like the $1,500 or so that guy did. So I charge
I think
nothing.
That's part of it is the expectation of like, well, I'm paying you a lot to do this, so I would imagine there's going to be something that comes out of this. Like, sure, there's an element of luck, but you know, part of the reason
I mean, you would think because you feel like you're paying them for their expertise, but I wish it were that easy. I mean, you're just throwing money in a bucket and hoping something, you know, something. It doesn't. It's really no more than that. There's no more analogy there or anything. So you're just throwing money away. But every once in a while, something can happen. But I was detour from Sea of Storms.
Yeah. I was trying to remember when we met, and I'm trying to think. I think the very first. I remember seeing your old band, Myth Mountain, play with Trap Them and Narrows, and that's probably 10 years ago at this point. And then maybe the first time I met you was probably when I booked Late Bloomer to play in Hickory at the coffee shop.
Yeah, I think that was our second show.
Yeah. I want to say that was it. Yeah. Was Old Flings on that show as well?
Yeah, it was Old Flings, Dear Cavalier, and that might have been the whole show, but I thought that was somebody else.
Did Joey play?
No.
I thought there was another local, as far as I remember.
Well, I wonder if that was like Handshakes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Or that would have been the era that they would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the second Late Bloomer show. That was and that was actually like the day before I believe Scott's son was born.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because we pretty much started the band, played a couple shows, and then kind of were like, does that mean he's not our drummer anymore? But I don't know, that's like a silly thing. I mean, but yeah, we just kept playing, and now his kid is basically his son is like an indication of how long we've been a band. Like it's like we can watch our band grow up as he grows up. So eventually when he'll like get a car and we'll be like, how are we still a band? Like it's I don't know. He's not at car age yet.
Right.
So we're not that old of a band. But yeah, I mean, Meth Mountain, that definitely would have been. Meth Mountain wasn't that long of a band, so that would have had to have been like, we were a band for like a year, basically.
Oh, shit. I didn't realize it was that short.
It was really short. Like, we practiced for a while, so there's like things that might say like 2008 to 2010, but like we actually played a show in February, and then the next February, we played our last show, I think, on the exact same date. And it's weird because like Meth Mountain had like a demo tape, a CD EP, and a 7-inch, and then right after we broke up, like a discography that included like a new EP we had. So in like a year's time of playing shows, that's a decent amount of material.
Yeah.
I don't know, and it's like feels like it was longer, but I don't know. And I don't even feel like we played a crazy amount. It just was it got a good period in like our early to mid 20s, and probably on the earlier side, and it's just kind of the right age and time frame to do it. But that Trap Them show was interesting because we had a lot of shows where there was either the shows that went well or the shows where Stu would just stomp on his pedals a bunch because like something would mess up, and then he would like take it out on his pedals on stage while everyone was watching him, and then he would be like, I never want to play this venue again. And they're like, I don't think that was the venue's fault. We told you to get a new patch cable. It was like always a patch cable. So yeah, I remember that show very well.
I just use the ones they send me with the pedals.
It was just like, it's like we would go to practice. He would have the same issue with the patch cable, and then we'd be like, you should fix that patch cable for the show, and then he wouldn't, and then the exact same thing would happen during the show. It would always be on the song Monotony, and it's like this part. It's like you'd set like a loop essentially, like it's just he starts the riff like it's like then he hits the loop like right there, and then so it keeps doing that, and then that way he can do leads kind of over that loop. But when his patch would fuck up, it would go like and then kind of like fuck up, and then he'd get like half the loop, and then he'd freak out and start kicking in the loop pedal. It was, I mean, it's funny now, but it was always like, it's just like, dude, what the fuck? This is so stupid. Like, just like dumb shit like that. Like, fix your patch cables. That's the point of that.
All right. Well, I guess we could start the actual show. So, for this episode, we got the year 1981. And as usual, we go to the Rate Your Music charts to check out the albums that came out this year. And right off the bat, my initial reaction is, hey, this is a good year, but it's also a weird year.
This is post-punk in full force.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this year, and kind of looking at everything, really kind of explains these two albums to me. But yeah, we can go more in a second.
So number one is This Heat, their album Deceit. I'm not really familiar with that band.
I'm not either, honest. I like the cover.
I listened to a little bit of it. It's definitely on the more experimental side. Some of it sounds really interesting, but I don't know if it's something I'd love from beginning to end. So
yeah. Number two, though, this is a very awesome one. It's Wipers, Youth of America. We talked about the Wipers a couple episodes back. Which album was that? Was it? Good Lord, I'm blanking. You talk about an album for a week and think about it for a week.
The yellow cover?
Follow Blind.
Follow Blind, that's the one we covered, which was a later one. Well, I guess in the middle. But Youth of America is their second album, and it's not even really a full length, right? It's just an EP.
I always listen to it on there's a Wipers best of kind of thing. Or it's not really a best of. I think it's like a discography of earlier stuff. And I think the second disc starts with Youth of America. And, a great track, all 11 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only 6 songs, but yeah, there's a couple of pretty long songs. There's Youth of America, and When It's Over is almost 7 minutes long. So
yeah, I mean, that's when people always tell me. A lot of people say that that kind of bullshit. Songs shouldn't be over 3 minutes, and I'm like, you should listen to Youth of America. That will maybe I pretty much agree with you in most cases, but. Youth of America is a great 10-minute and 27-second long song. That's an amazing song. Or it's I don't know. It's that proves their argument wrong.
I typically prefer the shorter songs, but at the same time, you can have a longer song as long as it serves a purpose. If you're doing something with it. If it's just.
I feel like that song goes a lot of places.
Yeah, it really does.
And. So, I mean, I'm not mad about that specific song.
Yeah.
I think it's a great counterpoint to everyone thinking every song needs to be a Buddy Holly jam. Like, I mean, it's like, yeah, we all agree. Like, I don't know even if they set out to make a 10-minute long song. Looking at the lengths of most of their songs around this time frame, they're about 3 minutes, except for When It's Over. So it's like they seem to try the same thing as the rest of us, but every once in a while you got to write a 10.5 minute long song. So
scrolling down a little bit, I listened to a couple of these albums this week, just getting ready for the episode, and that number 4 record is Susie and the Banshees, Juju. I really like that record. Susie is one of those, she's like a legend, but for some reason I don't really know too much of her actual music. I feel like I just know her place in punk history more. So like I need to like dig deeper into her discography to like really, see what all she's done. But that album right there, that's a fantastic record.
It feels like, to me, like I don't really hear people under like 40 talk about Susie and the Banshees. But if you get like an older head in the scene, they will talk to you forever about Susie and the Banshees. So I feel like it missed me by like a whole generation. But it seems to be really important to people that are like 10 or so more years older than me. So
and it's
I don't
funny
know what kind of happened.
It's funny because the next band, The Cure, their album Faith came out this year too, and The Cure have been around nearly as long as Susie and the Banshees, but people today younger still talk about The Cure. So it's funny which bands are more important to which generations, even though they're from the same eras.
I think The Cure probably was more consistent later into their career.
Yeah,
and they definitely had more mainstream success. Whereas Susie is a little more underground. I mean, they reference Susie and the Banshees and Stranger Things. So, I mean, she's not that obscure, but,
No. I think it's like something happened there with, I mean, I think it just might have been not staying around. Like, I don't even know. I don't know really much about Susie and the Banshees, so I would be like talking out of my ass. But, I mean, it's just, it seems like it's not as relevant as I would expect for people to drop it, like even like you said in Stranger Things, but it seems to be almost like like when people, it's like not like Dead Kennedys at all, but it's like kind of like t-shirt bands. It's almost like a band that people like to mention that they like, but they don't actually because it would be more relevant now. But I mean, it looks like they stopped in 96 and The Cure did not. I think also they went on to that band, The Creatures, which I listened to their record recently. So I don't know. I don't know why people don't really talk about them as much.
I mean, I guess The Cure, too, also had a ton of singles that were, like, really big hits. So that could lend to people willing to give them more of a chance. Whereas, unless you were just aware of Susie's and the Banshees, like, impact on early punk, you're probably not super familiar with, later albums. So, or the singles. Like, to be honest, I can't even think of a single.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's 3 of us, so it seems like it's not just like one of us has a blind spot, so there must be like something to it. I mean, in a sense, they could have potentially like stayed around too long. I mean, 76 to 96. So, but then again, that doesn't really add up for The Cure. But I don't know, The Cure is just an anomaly, I think. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
After that, number 6 is X, and their album Wild Gift. Is that the last like really great X record?
I feel like there's stuff after that, like Under the Black Sun. Is that before or after?
Yeah.
You're right. That's right. That's 82.
Wild for some Gift reason, I thought a weird one to me in terms of. I feel like that's the first misstep.
I'm trying to think what's on that. I'm trying to find them on even Wikipedia.
I listened to this album, and Adult Books is on this one, and that's probably the biggest.
I think you might be right about it being kind of a misstep in terms of like, I don't feel like I remember as much about. I feel like I listened to Under the Big Black Sun and Los Angeles the most. Anything. I'm Coming Over is good.
It's funny. Like it's only their second full length, and for some reason, my mind thought it was like their 5th, but it's not.
Yeah, I always think that this is like a later one due to the artwork. Under the Black Sun seems like it would have been an earlier one, kind of due to the artwork. But that has a lot of good songs on Under the Big Black Sun, and that was just a year later. More fun in the New World. I mean, that still has...
Yeah, it's got songs that they play regularly, you know? We're having much more fun, and Must Not Think Bad Thoughts. Those are really classic X songs.
Ain't Love Grand. I don't really like that one as much, but I think that's when they were kind of moving into, I'd say, like, more country-esque stuff.
Is that the one without Billy Zoom? Isn't there a period?
It was, I mean, that one, Ain't Love Grand, is with Billy Zoom, but...
It has a weirder production. Like it...
Yeah, the production is what throws you. I mean, it could be as good if somehow we could get, like, another mix of it, but then... See How We Are is the one without Billy Zoom, but it has Dave Alvin from the Blasters, but I don't remember liking that because of it. I like the Blasters a lot, which doesn't really make sense in my generation if we go back to talking about that, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember thinking that he's like a great addition, but yeah, I don't think he was on with them that long. Dave Alvin's kind of a weirdo though.
Continuing the list, man, this top 10 is really good. So, number 7 is the Gun Club's Fire of Love.
That's a great one.
I wasn't super familiar with the Gun Club, and like I listened to this album, like I knew their name and I knew kind of what they did, but I hadn't listened to any of their albums all the way through before. And I listened to this one, and I was like really impressed with it. It's like sort of psychobilly, but not really. It's like kind of alt country before alt country. But I don't know. I really enjoyed this record. It's classified.
I think the one to check out though is the one after that.
Yeah, Miami.
Miami is really great. I did like a kind of deep, like after Meth Mountain, I was in a band called Pullman Strike, and kind of like if Meth Mountain was the band where I discovered a lot more like melodic hardcore stuff, then Pullman Strike was the band that I went all in into alt country and like rootsy Americana or psychobilly kind of time frame of my college years. But yeah, I mean, so that kind of went the spectrum of Uncle Tupelo on, and then into like the Blasters or the Gun Club and stuff like that. But I'd say Miami is the one. But you can't listen to Miami it's not on Spotify. So whoever
is it not?
I don't believe so. I mean, they have like a weird thing on Spotify. It's like I don't think it's live. It's like, or it might be live. There's something weird that's up that's not like something you would normally listen.
No, I see you listening for Miami. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Is it up now?
Yeah, maybe it's
where we tried to listen to it like even a few weeks ago, like on tour. And I swear it wasn't there because we like every time we're out, because we talk about that era a lot. The guy who's drumming on tours with Late Bloomer now is a guy named Jared Rogers. He plays in this band called Nerve Endings from Tennessee. And he likes a lot of that era of stuff too. And I swear we're always talking about Gun Club and X and stuff like that. I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, it kind of is interesting. I like this era of music a lot. And I think this list, like, obviously goes in next to, like, Black Flag. And Agent Orange, Yeah.
Black Flag Damaged is number 8 on here. I'm actually surprised that it's at number 8. I thought it would be even higher than that, because this is like the Black Flag album. Now I know everyone has their different preferences as far as like Black Flag records and vocalists, but I feel like Damaged is probably the most well-known Black Flag album.
Probably the starting point for anyone who listens to Black Flag.
Yeah, I was surprised that we didn't discuss it. Glenn Branca is that high up on it.
Oh yeah.
It just seems like Glenn Branca was always just like, when you read stuff about Sonic Youth or in like Our Band Could Be Your Life, everyone would mention Glenn Branca, but I was like, I don't know if anyone actually listens to Glenn Branca. It's like when they would explain like the kind of orchestra and then no one's playing the same thing, and I'm like, cool, but I don't want to be there. Like that's what. So I was surprised that was high up on the list. So I mean, but I feel like sometimes like maybe I don't know. I always wonder with like Black Flag or like thinking hardcore stuff, punk stuff should be like higher on lists. But I'm like, it's kind of it's not even as easy to get into as Gun Club in a way.
Yeah, it's not as melodic. I did know that we have noticed on doing these Rate Your Music charts that anytime something kind of appeals to people outside of the punk scene, it tends to get way more attention, and that it kind of skews the voting. So like I think that's how you wind up with this Glenn Branca at number 3, and like this Heat is number 1, but it's because non-punks are also reviewing it, and I wouldn't even call those even remotely. I mean, it's no wave. I mean, noise rock. It's not really punk, but it is.
I think it's the idea of doing whatever you want, but like, and that's why punk during this time frame, I think it's interesting, but it's also like hard to kind of pin down because it was really just like a free for all. And I'd say a lot of the stuff I would almost consider punk, but they're way, way different. Like even, I'm skipping up a bunch, like Echo and the Bunnymen. I'm kind of surprised they're not like at the top of the list.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I would say that album was really popular.
Yeah, that was really popular, and it's critically pretty well received. And like looking at this whole page in general, it seems to be like an odd period for punk. Like we're in that valley between 77 punk and like American hardcore really taking off. I mean, yes, Black Flag is on here, and who else is on here? That's like the Adolescents are on here, and maybe it's because hardcore was doing a ton of like EPs and singles at this time, but it's a lot more post-punk. It's a lot more like not even new wave yet. Like there is new wave, but it's still leaning closer to post-punk. And a lot of arty stuff on here. Is there anything on this?
Like it's like people didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like they were just like, we're going to do something different. I don't know where it's going to land. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that just like maybe even doesn't know completely what it wants to be yet, which serves, I think, public image well. I don't know if that's like a good public image record, but it's definitely a strange period. And even in terms of like production on albums, like I don't feel like they knew what to do with like these new sounds.
I do think I like this era of production better than like the more later 80s production, because for some reason all those albums sound, I don't know, they sound really thin to me. It's like it's a bigger sound, so like it has a huge sound, but it's way colder.
It's what happens when you make everything as big as possible. It just kind of flattens everything out. Yeah. And when you record all your guitars and drums,
I almost feel like give a lot of this like 2 years, and their records in like 83 were probably like better.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, you got into the whole like everyone kind of went metal. Like even if you look at like TSOL, then I don't know what year. Let me see. There's one really great album that's probably actually my favorite TSOL record, but it's not usually the one that people say. And I think it's like an in-between. Change Today. Like people don't always reference that one. Yeah. It came out in 84, so that's kind of like proves my point. But I'd say it's not like a real point. But like like people always say like Dance With Me is like the best TSOL record, and I'm like, you should listen to Change Today, because it's like doing almost an in-between where they went, and where they went was really bad, but it's like but that in-between is great. Like it's like a gothic-y kind of thing, and it's more rock. Like the songs on Change Today are great.
I really like the one before that, Beneath the Shadows. That's the one I like the most out of the TSOL discography. We talked about their album Revenge on our very, very first episode.
Not good.
It was a weird one, and it was like the first with their new vocalist, and then like right after that, they turned into like a Motley Crue wannabe.
Yeah,
that's where the in between kind of is like the best with that stuff. I guess Beneath the Shadows is
that one's like
actually
that one's
I think
post-punky. Yeah, that one's fun. I like that one. I also like that it's not like a straight up hardcore record, because I think a lot of hardcore from this era is kind of limited, because everybody was kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
What is there anything else on this front page that we should call out while we're on here?
Modern Lovers is cool, but I don't know if I don't know what time frame. I feel like Modern Lovers is just on every Spotify playlist now.
Yeah.
So I hope Jonathan Richman is doing well.
I don't know that I have ever listened to that one. I've listened to the first one, and then I've heard maybe a little bit of just the solo Jonathan Richman stuff, and yeah, I have no frame of reference for that one. I love the first album, so maybe I should,
It sounds funny to say, but I don't know who God is. Or I guess it's Rip Rig, or what's her name? Rip Rig and Panic is the name of the band. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And they had an album called God, which almost looks like it's like the band could be called God, and the album is called Rip Rig and
with
Panic.
The placement.
Yeah. I don't. Nothing really kind of comes out at me.
That Minimin record, the Punchline, is really good. Is that the first? No, is that the first full length? Or is that?
Technically,
I love Minutemen, but I don't know if that's the one I would go to. I mean, you can't go wrong with Double Nickels on the Dime. I feel like it's like, the one everyone always says, but that's for good reason. I mean, they have good stuff outside of that, but it just has kind of everything you want from the Minutemen. And I don't really feel like that Replacements era was when they had hit. People always do that and say that they like the Replacement punk era, but it's like, I don't know, man. I don't really like listening to children try and write rock music. But I mean, I really think that 84, and it's kind of even, that's why I'm saying like 84 was kind of like, there's a lot of cool stuff in 81 that is kind of perfected in 84.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a lot of good ideas in this time frame. It's like, it's good that Minutemen exist in 81, but they didn't perfect it until 84. And I would say I was trying to do the same with like the Stranglers. Like maybe they figured it out a couple years later, but I didn't like the next record either. So I don't know. There's a lot of things where people were like really shooting for cool ideas, but I don't, and doing new things, even like Replacements even, but I don't really think they had mastered it by then.
Looking at the second page, it definitely falls off of a cliff as far as like super, well-known records. What's over here? Like that Ramones record, Pleasant Dreams, which it's okay. I mean, I love the Ramones in general. That record's probably not the best. It's got KKK Took My Baby Away and She's a Sensation, but it also has a weird production for them. Like it's really big and echoey, and
they weren't quite at mid-era yet, which I think is their best to me. When they kind of got out of the like pop songs and into a little bit longer, like Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, in that kind of time frame, and then when they started really expanding a little bit within the song, is like the best Ramones era for my money.
Oh, so I don't know that I've talked to a lot of people who like middle Ramones the most.
I think people like I Want to Live and even like up into, I mean, their mid-era really lasted almost to, it's like the mid-era really lasted for like the rest of the 80s. And then the 90s, I don't know about that. Like,
I love Adios Amigos, but that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Brain Drain, there's a couple of tracks on that might have been like 89. I mean, and I feel like there's not, here's the problem. And it's like, if you're looking for an album by them, then the early stuff is the best.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the albums kind of get weaker, but there's better songs on those albums. Like when you get to about, once again, like 84, there's some of their best stuff, but you don't really want to listen to all of Too Tough to Die.
Right.
But Too Tough to Die has like some of the best songs on it. But it's not as great of an album.
I think probably like Subterranean Jungle is probably the last Ramones record that I want to hear all the way through.
They did Mania like in the 90s. You don't need to listen to. You can go to like the middle of the CD, and it's like we don't have to. It's 2019. We don't have to listen to a whole. But I mean that has Mama's Boy. I mean that's kind of where they started going into like kind of changing up the formula. That has like a lot of good songs on it, like Howling at the Moon.
I mean Warthog and Durango 95, which they used to like open every show for the entirety of.
It's weird because it's like it was like their answer to like hardcore punk existing. Yeah, I feel like and they were kind of a little late then in that regard because '84, if they just started playing around with it. I mean even
if you follow like what's his name, Stephen Blush's American Hardcore, he's like hardcore died in '86, so like '84 is late to the game.
Yeah, I mean that Animal Boy has good stuff on it too. I mean that's '85.
I mean, I think every single Ramones album has one really great song on it. Even Mondo Bizarro and Acid Eaters.
Yeah, like I think like Animal Boy, it has Somebody Put Something in My Drink and the song Animal Boy and Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Other than Something to Believe in. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's like these songs are better, but the albums itself aren't better, so that people don't remember it. But I'm like, some of the best songs are those albums.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what Eat the Rat or A Freak of Nature are.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the album, they're not better, but the songs are better. Half of or not even half, like they'll have 3 of the best songs on like kind of the worst album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we've spent enough time on the charts, and we can start the actual albums. So, for this episode, we got number 99 on the albums charts, and it is The Stranglers, The Gospel According to the Meninblack.
The centuries you threw away, and all the lies that you had started, and all the chances thrown away. If I set sail for new horizons, could I still leave you waiting? Just one set of chances, the others would be thrown away. Even though we tried, time wasn't on our side. Then there came the day we threw it all away. On the way.
So you kind of showed your hand already.
Yeah.
What did you think of this record?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
No, I was hoping you were skipping over me. But well, I had seen people I think even like wearing Strangler shirts, so I thought they were cooler sounding. The shirts look cool.
Yeah.
They have a good logo. Like
I do like that pink like Sharpie cursive.
Well, let me run through some basics on the band real quick. So, they are from Guildford, Surrey, England, formed in 1974, and this is their 5th album and their first of 2 in 1981. This was released on Liberty Records, and interestingly, the album cover kind of has all the pertinent information as far as like the credits go. The personnel on this record is Hugh Cornwell on guitar and vocals, Dave Greenfield on keys, Jean-Jacques Burnell on bass, and Jet Black on drums. It was produced by the band themselves, and it's the single Thrown Away reached 42 on the UK chart, and the album itself made it to number 8 on the UK albums chart. And that was considered a disappointment.
Because everyone immediately threw the record away.
The most important thing about this record is it's a concept album.
Is it?
About, I mean, that's what they say, about aliens and the Men in Black. And yeah, so they were given free reign basically, because their previous albums had done really well. And so they're like, yeah, guys, go ahead, do whatever you want, anything you want. And they did a lot of heroin and recorded this album.
Oh.
They said they purposely experimented with heroin to make this record.
Really?
Which feels like they're trying to excuse their heroin abuse, but to me it kind of explains why this album is so dark compared to the albums on either side of this. So I listened to a little bit of like the 4 albums before and the album that came right after this, and I like all of them much more than this one. And I'd almost say that the A side of this record is like almost unlistenable.
Yeah.
So when I listened to this, I didn't realize that it was going to be basically a krautrock record.
Mm-hmm.
My impression of the Stranglers was that they were a pub rock band turned new wave, and then in the 80s. This is way out of place in their discography.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I want to say though, I didn't hate it musically. I thought there were some good, especially in the keyboard work. I think the synthesizers and keyboards on this record are actually doing pretty interesting things. But
yeah, the synth keys and guitars were probably the thing that stood out the most to me.
It just doesn't come together overall.
I got like some craft work. I even got a little Devo. There are even there's some like certain guitar moments that I was like, yeah, that's an NXS guitar riff, or like Thomas Dolby's, like that sounds like Weird Science, or Blinded Me with Science, or a Flock of Seagulls riff or something. Like this came out in '81, which is before a lot of those '80s mid pop records, but it was just I imagine this record was probably more influential for their synth work, and maybe that's what a lot of the new wave bands were borrowing from later. But
I don't know.
The songwriting, it's rough.
Two sunspots are staring at me. One to the left and one to the right of me. Never seen a heat so extraordinaire. Just two sunspots so scared. Just two sunspots. Just two sunspots. Just two sunspots. Spots are burning a hole in my eyes. Just two.
I do like the B side. It starts with Two Sunspots. And Two Sunspots, Four Horsemen, Thrown Away, and even the song "Hallow to Our Men." They're all pretty good. I liked a lot of those, but not so much like vocally. I don't know. I enjoyed what the synth and the guitars were doing, but his robotic kind of echoey vocals just did nothing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like anytime I comment on someone singing, it's like I feel like I have to be like, well, as a person that's not a great singer myself, but it's like I don't know if it's like production on his voice or like I just think the mix of this whole record is so bad.
Yeah.
And it's like we have enough during this time frame that like I don't want to give it the pass of 1981, especially with a record that seemed to have move as many units still as this, so it's like it was expected to do stuff, so I feel like people were putting time into it. It's not like an introduction, they had time to do this. Like it's just overall like the mix makes things even more annoying, like everything, even it's like I want to say the synth work, but a lot of the stuff just sounds like fucking circus. Like it's like I like a lot of like craft work and kind of even I like going into a lot of like dark wave stuff that kind of happened a few years later. So I guess that you have to kind of give it credit for like maybe what it influenced, but I don't want to. It's like this is just bad. Like they should have thrown this record away. Like,
and what I was thinking when I was looking at the charts, when you think about what they're doing on this record And when you compare it to maybe some of the stuff on like the first page here, this Heat goes a little more extreme in terms, and Glenn Branca too, in terms of like noise experimentation. You have better synth work and catchier tunes and better vocal performances on Movement by New Order.
And Echo and the Bunnymen.
And right, you've got an Echo and the Bunnymen record, a Gang of Four record, a Bauhaus record, a Psychedelic Furs record, all of which do some similar experimentations with punk, and maybe even draw from a lot of the same influences of like Can and Neu and Kraftwerk, but do them better.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I wonder though if it's like kind of like being in between the two. It's like they're not like catchy enough to be like Echo and the Bunnymen, but they're not like weird enough to be like Glenn Branca. So it's like like Sin is kind of being the middle of it, but it's like maybe they all did heroin, but did the engineer also do heroin? Because that's really the problem. Like, I would blame a lot of it, but then again, if they were just like nodding off at the drums or something, then what were they going to get out of them in these performances? It's like, I mean, I don't want to like just like, I think it's like, it's not interesting in just like trash stuff, but it's like half-baked ideas. Like, I don't, I don't think I would ever write about like Men in Black, but I also, it's like a different time frame. I think it's interesting that they were writing that, but it's kind of stupid that it says like Men in Black and then there was a bunch of like biblical stuff. So it's like, well, which one are you trying to do?
Well, they were doing
to tie the two together, like.
From what I read, they were trying to do like the Ancient Aliens type, like, oh well, the pyramids were built by aliens. And like, what? The Men in Black weren't around back then, so like this doesn't. And we already have the perfect Men in Black song. It was by Will Smith. So
I kept seeing people say that this record inspired the movie Men in Black somehow. I don't know what.
The whole Men in Black thing was like such a big part of like sci-fi lore, starting in like the 60s, or even like 50s. That it's like it was just bound to happen. But also, isn't Men in Black the movie? It's based on a comic book.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like there was this movie I saw on before Men in Black the movie came out. There was another like Men in Black movie I saw in like a motel room, and it was like a made-for-TV, like, Cinemax movie. And it wasn't a porn or anything, but, like, it was just, like, something I saw, and I was like, I remember a movie about Men in Black before Men in Black came out. But, I mean, I think it was just kind of a concept that was, like, around. I think like, it could be interesting if they picked one or the other.
Yeah.
But, and also, I really hate I don't like when your letters run together, like you're a Screamo band. Like it's all like Men in Black, and then like their names were like they're credited as Hugh in Black, Dave in Black, JJ in Black. It's like 14. Like, they have a lot to answer for this record.
The gatefold. I don't know if you've seen this. The artwork. If you look at Discogs, it has the gatefold scans, and it has The Last Supper. Except there's a guy in a black suit. A Men in Black at the Last Supper table with them. So it's definitely them trying to tie in like religion with aliens and UFOs.
When I was like in my car listening to both records, and then it's like I listened to the EP that we'll talk about, and then I started listening to this, and I was like, do they hate me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Like this is... Like, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty open-minded with stuff, and I like a lot of stuff from this era. And a lot of times I like the kind of production, like how kind of high-end everything is. Like, I don't feel like they really mastered, like, getting bass right. But it's just, like, nothing was coming together for this album. Like, I feel like I dislike this album so much that I want to listen to more Stranglers to, like, see if I...
Yeah, this album actually did make me want to go listen to other stuff to see kind of what the deal was with them. And I did find a lot of the other stuff way more interesting than this record. So if you're listening to this episode and you don't have any experience with the Stranglers outside of these clips that I'm playing within the episode, go try something. Try maybe their first full length or their second full length. Like, I think you'll find something more interesting there. It's definitely like, it's funny. They're like part of that original wave, like 77 UK punk, but they were almost doing post-punk like right away. So I would try some of that stuff to get an idea. And if you don't like that stuff, then you're just not gonna like the Stranglers because, you know, I'm not gonna
the
Stranglers.
They reach for a lot of things. Like I went to listen to La Folie, I guess that's how it's pronounced, and I felt like there were a lot of the same production choices that I didn't really like. But it's like something I'm reading now. It says the title track is said to be based on the story of Issei Sagawa, and it's like they're really reaching for things, you know, and kind of it's a Japanese man while living in Paris in 1981 killed and cannibalized a Dutch woman. So they're like make these big leaps in like what they're writing about. That's like cool, but it's just execution. I feel like it's. You know.
I do think the songwriting is better on the La Folie, the album that came out later in '81. It's just like they tried to write more pop songs than this album. This album, like the first half of the album, it just feels like I don't know. The first half is so boring and uninteresting.
They really did a disservice of starting this album with 2 songs, and the only 2 songs on the record, at least from what I heard, that have chipmunk voices. And the first track isn't even really a song, like in terms of like, what you expect. It's just like an organ waltz. I mean, like,
which apparently was used as a theme song for a TV show.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the.
I mean, I could see that. I mean, there's so much stuff in this where I'm just like, actually, what I was thinking, I was like, I bet if I heard this out of context in like, I don't know, like a TV show or something, I could be like, oh, this really works. But, you know, it's, you know, I could see it in like a movie. They throw it in like a movie, like about the Men in Black, not, you know, but.
I found what it is. Parts of the distinctive opening instrumental Waltzinblack were later used as the theme music for Keith Floyd's BBC TV series Floyd on Food. So
it was. I could see it. I mean, I think like I've personally written songs in 3/4, but they really leaned into the whole waltz part of it, you know, and so that's like. You shouldn't, like, if you're already writing a waltz, you shouldn't like lean into the waltziness of it. And so it just made it like a sadistic carnival, and that's not really what I want to do with my time.
Yeah, like one of the songs on here sounds like just like a Halloween sound effects album. It's like it's which one is that? Is it the I can't remember. Maybe it was that Turn the Centuries, or it's maybe it's this. Maybe it is the very first track. It does kind of have just like this. It's not a song. It's just here's an intro. Oh, but it's also really long.
Yeah.
I did notice there was some like funny like Mario Brothers style synth on the song Second Coming.
I felt like I remember kind of liking it though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I mean, that's also just while not liking the rest of the album.
You were probably like, "Hey, that's cool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a sea of stuff that you were like, "Man, I don't like this." Well, I made the mistake of listening to the bonus tracks as well. Because I didn't know they were bonus tracks until after I listened.
I think I did too, since I listened to it on Spotify. Because I was looking at it just now, and it said 44 minutes, and then it was like 50-some minutes, I think, and I was like, "Oh man, that made it worse."
It really did.
Yeah. So yeah, no.
I got halfway through the record, and I was like, "Hey, I almost like the middle of this album," and then I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, that's actually the second half of the whole album. Like, it's not even just the middle. It's like got 3 really bad bonus tracks on the end that sounds just like the A side." So it was a very frustrating experience, and I was like, "Why is this album taking so long to finish? It's only 44 minutes."
It's like the bonuses make it like in the 50s, but it's like a 50-some minutes that feel like a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned the vocals earlier and not wanting to be too critical of them. I know I get what you mean. I'm not a great singer myself, but continue to try. But what is most frustrating to me is about the vocals on this record is the complete lack of trying.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think once again I mentioned like the mix. It's like I don't know what it is. Like, it's like I don't know if it's his performance or if it's like the mix. It's also like really bare, where it's like it's buried, which I'm fine with in a lot of cases, but it's thin. It's like it's like it could have been like double track. I don't think he has like a voice that you want like buried in that way. I mean, I would have, if I produced this record. And I never will. But it's like there's just weird choices all around, and this could have been like straight up like I want my voice to sound this way. And I've never listened to this record on vinyl. There could be a better way I didn't need to hear this record, But I also think that's not great if I have to like go leaps and bounds to experience this record differently, But I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably sit down and try and listen to more Stranglers because I really want to like give that guy a fair shake, because from like my tiny research of it, it looks like he left the band in like 93 and had like a solo career, I believe. But I don't know if y'all did more research on like Hugh.
I looked at a little bit of the band's history. The band is still together. They are one of the like longest running original UK punk bands. They, as far as I could tell, they never really broke up. They maybe took spells of inactivity as far as like recording or like touring. But yeah, everyone on this record is still in the band except for Hugh Cornwell. And now the bass player Jean-Jacques does the lead vocals.
Oh.
So it's interesting. They kept it in the band, that they didn't just go hire a new person to play. Yeah. I was curious about, you mentioned the engineer, and I was curious what this person had also worked on. So the engineer on this record is a guy named Steve Churchyard, and he is a Grammy Award-winning sound engineer. And I looked at his credits. He has some crazy credits. So he's still working today. He has done, in 2017... In 2016, he did a Faith Hill record. He worked with Paul McCartney, Three Doors Down, Disturbed. Oh, he worked with this. Oh, that's a collection. Never mind. I was gonna say he worked with the Stranglers in 2014, but he worked with the Rascal Flatts. His biggest credits is he worked on the Miley Cyrus album Bangers. He also worked on Taylor Swift's Speak Now as an engineer. And he worked on Katy Perry's Teenage Dream as the drum engineer. Wow. So this dude has had a career. And if you go way back to the beginning of stuff that he's done, in 1978, he was the assistant engineer on a Jimmy Buffett record. So, and he did.
Well, yeah, you got to work.
He did
a better job on that record.
He did a Wings record in '78. He did a John Cougar Mellencamp in '78. So, like,
I'd say he did better jobs on those.
Yeah.
I don't know what record they are specifically, but
and his role was
sounding better. Also, his role was smaller probably.
But he's definitely a guy who's worked with people. So
it's hard to say. I mean, it's like this could be like an early job for him. I feel like it's like, I don't know. It's like one of those things where I feel like if I were to say that to somebody, like about the Stranglers, then they'll just be like, I'm the biggest Stranglers fan and you're an idiot. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not feeling it. Like, I feel like there's enough stuff around this time frame where I don't need to give concessions as to, like, they hadn't figured it out yet. It's like The Cure, and I don't know that specific Cure record, but, I mean, there's stuff in that time frame, and it's good.
I listened to that Cure record, and it's not my favorite Cure stuff. It's very early, and it's a lot more jangly, but it's better than this record. And you were saying, like, the biggest Stranglers fan is going to call you an idiot. The way this show has worked in the past, we're probably going to get a ton of negative comments because we'll talk about albums that we love 80% of the time, and then the 20% of the time we don't like something, we get the negative comments on. So,
well, among Stranglers fans, I think this is, of their earlier work, this is probably the lowest rated.
It is.
Okay.
I actually looked at that as well. So, out of the first out of the first 9 albums, this is the lowest rated. And then it's not until their 1986 album Dreamtime that you get a lower score. So yeah,
I think even amongst at the end of the day, I mean, it's kind of like, I might actually, because I'm like such a, I don't know if it's sadist or masochist. I can't ever figure it out. So maybe I'm a bit of both. But like I'll probably go back to this record because like sometimes when I like hate albums this much, it might end up becoming my favorite album. It's like, because there is something there, and I think that they took like a huge swing with this, like with the concept, with some of the things, like the choices, and I think like the mix, because the keyboards are like piercing sometimes, and it's like, to me, I would be like, oh, bury the keyboard a little bit, raise the bass, and make it less trebly so that everything kind of rides on it, and kind of like buried the guitar some so that everything's kind of riding around the bass and drums would be what I would have said in mix notes. But because I think that would have made a better album. Maybe there's like a remix of this somewhere. But I mean, I think what I was saying is I think it's interesting in what it's trying to give us, Mm-hmm. But I don't, but I mean, but so is like so many bad movies, it feels like that way where it's like you watch it because of it, it's like trying to be something, but it's really not succeeding, and you're like, ooh, this is a beautiful train wreck. So in that regard, I might, but I don't really like doing that with records as much because there's no visual element to it, so it just kind of grates on me. But I think I'm gonna like spend more time with this band, and like maybe there'll be a complete 180 in like how I feel about this band, because I want to like them. Like, I'm rooting for them. I hate it so much that I'm like coming out the other end and I'm like feeling bad.
So just for your reference, the way we rate our albums, we have a scale of 1 to 5, or 0 to 5 really. So I would give this album, I would give it a 2.75 because I think the second half of the album is good. I think I liked the second half of the album. There's a lot of stuff on there that I find interesting. So I can't write this off as like a 2.0 or a 1.75. Like there's enough good on the B side for me to almost get it to 3. But yeah, 2.75 is where I'm sitting. Dylan, what would you give it?
I was thinking the same thing, 2.75. By the end of it, I was ready for it to be over. There's a lot that I'm rooting for. Like you said, Josh, there are interesting ideas, and it's definitely a big swing, but I think it's also a pretty big miss in a lot of ways. So Yeah, 2.75.
I would give it 2 out of 5 because I think that the 2 is maybe on the B side and it's what it's trying to do. But if it didn't have the B side that it did, then I would want to give this like 0.5 or 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm probably being a little harsh on it, but I don't know. I feel like 2 kind of says it's an album.
Yeah.
But 5, so it's like I don't really. I'd be scared to get into like. I feel like when I rate movies on like Letterboxd, I feel like it's like a 2.5. It's like it's fine to me. Like it's a watchable movie, And then 3 says this is. It's like it's not a great movie. It's not like a great movie, but it's good. So it's like if I'm using the same kind of scale out of 5, I'm just kind of saying, whatever.
Yeah, I always have a hard time with those because to me it's like, well, you have 5 stars that you can give. So to me, a middle album that should be okay would be a 3, but I don't think anyone else thinks of it that way. I think people are like, it's 2 is fine, is what most.
But the same way with movies, I feel like you have to take into consideration a lot of different things, and so like every time I like rate a movie, and I tell my wife, even though I know she doesn't care what I want to rate a movie as after we watch it, but she's just like, but I don't understand like why you gave this Adam Sandler movie 3 out of 5 stars, but you gave like I don't even know what thing but I'll give like a Marvel movie like 2.5 stars, and I'll be like, but you really have to think it's like there's like a child scale with like Adam Sandler. It's like. For Adam Sandler, you give him a pat on the head, and you're like, good job. There's like a new Adam Sandler movie on Netflix with him and Jennifer Aniston. That's like a murder mystery movie. It's like Clue it's like Clue, basically.
Yeah.
And then it's like, not bad, but then it's like, on the whole scale of movies, if we're having Godfather on one side, and then it's like, it's not, but it can't even be on the same scale. Like, it's like you can't judge any Adam Sandler on like a Godfather scale.
The way I think of things is I tend to think of what the movie's like intended goal was. So like if you were trying just to make a silly movie to make people laugh, it's like, well, did it succeed at its intended purpose? Because if it did, then isn't that technically a 5? It did its job. It did what it was trying to do, and it didn't fail at what it
5 out of 5 for being
like
dumb.
I give this album a 2 is because I don't really feel like it succeeded at what it was trying to do.
Yeah, and I agree.
And it's but it's like I give it 2 because it tried. It tried a really crazy concept.
Yeah,
and that is like, it's like at the end of the day, if like art tried more than and if you try, I feel like if you try really hard and fail, like it's like. I don't know. I'll give you a big hug or something.
Yeah.
It's like it is cool when people are pushing it, and then someone can there might be tons of amazing albums that wouldn't exist if they hadn't heard Meninblack and maybe loved it, but then and so it's like, but I still have to listen to that album. So it's like I can't, but
creativity and effort like really go a long way for me. So like. As long as like you're trying to do something original or you're trying to do something new, it's hard to get really mad at it, and I'm not gonna just like trash it.
But if I want to do that, then I'll just listen to like a band like Suicide.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's total creativity and effort, and I think it succeeds way more.
Yeah.
Like it's like and crazy fucking concepts for its time, but and even before this, I believe like. Suicide albums were like late 70s, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's one in 77, so...
Yeah, and it's like much more listen. It's still a hard listen, but it's like...
Yeah.
I mean, not the same thing at all musically, but in a thing where you could see them on a show together. Like, you could have seen a show that was Suicide, Stranglers, and like Patti Smith or something.
Yeah, they exist in like a same world, even though they're not doing the same thing.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about this time frame, and like, I struggle to say punk, but kind of punk for the time, is they're all so different. Like to even say Patti Smith, Ramones, and Stranglers as one thing.
And
crazy.
our EP.
Right.
Yeah. All right, go
So
Yeah.
So let's go into the EP. So for we got number 197, which that seems very high. On the EP charts, which I guess on EP charts not that high. We'll get into that in a second. Anyway, it's 7 Seconds and Socially Fucked Up. So let's run some basics out of the way. 7 Seconds are from Reno, Nevada. This is their second demo. And yes, we got tricked by a demo again. Was released on Vicious Scam Tapes, which I'm pretty sure is just a self-release thing. And the personnel on this record is Kevin Seconds on vocals and guitar, Steve Youth on bass and vocals, and Tom Munist on drums. 7 Seconds were a straight edge punk band and very essential in the formation of Youth Crew hardcore, and heavily inspired by Minor Threat. So, in the past, we've been tricked by demos on 3 occasions. I normally don't want to talk about demos because they're not truly finished product. It's most of the time it's purely just to be for the band or to give like other people an idea of what your band sounds like, and it's not meant to be. I don't think it's necessarily meant to be graded on like as a finished product. So normally we try and avoid them. The way Rate Your Music works, they have you can label something as a demo, but a lot of people don't, and so they wind up showing up on EP lists. And I almost struggle to say this is an EP because it's 11 tracks. Like it.
Yeah. But it's like when listening to it, I don't like. There's like a thing about this recording where I can barely tell like when one song starts and another one ends, or just kind of zone out because they all have like the same drum beat, which oftentimes is good about punk. But I mean, like you were saying, like it's hard to kind of judge it because this really are like children that recorded this themselves, it kind of sounds like, and this was just something they wanted to pass out probably at shows to get shows. So it's like
I'm annoyed that it showed up on this list again because we got fooled by a Genocide, which was like early Repulsion, and there's 1 or 2 others that we did, and it's just like, God damn it, I wouldn't have done it because I don't think it's fair to grade or judge a demo. So
there's something about early punk demos that are really important documents for the development of punk. I mean, think about like the ROIR demo by Bad Brains, like, and there's definitely some Minor Threat demos that are like almost kind of essential listening. I mean, so when you I guess maybe put it into the context of really early DIY music, demos can be, a punk demo is probably more of a finished product than a typical demo for like a rock band. I think it was something that they stood by enough to like actually hand it out to people. So
there is like a change in style though, which kind of surprised me because I mean, like, it didn't surprise me that this existed, but I feel like in a way, if you would have just like, I almost would have thought that Skin, Brains, and Guts was like, the first thing in my head. I don't really recognize anything really before that, or there's, even after listening to this, I don't really think there's any reason to, because I really think that's like the first legitimate start of the band is Skin, Brains, and Guts, and then on to like the Crew, obviously.
I mean, I'm curious how many people even had this. I mean, I'm sure it was probably just a handful of people in the Reno area that originally had copies of this. Maybe if they played some California shows, they gave some out, but
I mean, it seems like I bet they probably mailed it off and stuff. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, I bet they probably mailed off copies of whatever labels existed at the time. I mean, I guess early
81.
Discord.
Alternative Tentacles, SST. I guess those all would have been around.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like a weird thing. A lot of times people do the same thing, I guess, like about 7 seconds that they do like Ramones. To me, I really feel like the mid era of 7 seconds is some of the best, and people usually just stick with the Crew and Skin, Brains, and Guts.
I was gonna ask you, would you consider yourself a 7 Seconds fan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have an EP called Praise that's like really amazing. And I was pretty late. I would listen to Walk Together, Rock Together, and the Crew a lot, which still early era. I don't like New Wind as much, but that's the time frame. I think there's like a split. I mentioned the '84 thing. Like people were kind of starting to kind of perfect these things, and then after that, they said, they essentially said, do we go metal or do we go melodic? It's like, do we go U2 or do we go metal? And in 7 Seconds chose U2. And that's what like New Wind is like their weird interpretation of like that. But so did like, I don't know, even for like Ian's bands and stuff, they kind of went more melodic. But they were saying they were going melodic because of U2, which is like a weird thing to think of now. But the bands that didn't go metal went more melodic, and I tend to go more on that side.
I would too, because most of them just turned into like butt rock hair metal bands. Like we talked about SSD not that long ago, and like, the album they came out with like after their second EP or so, it's just like, oh, okay, you guys are doing the exact same thing that TSOL did. Like you're just copying the big thing. Didn't even Gangrene do that too? Like they went.
Yeah, they have that. I mean, they have like that music video where they're like playing and people are skateboarding behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like there was definitely a time frame where like that's what I wanted to hear, but I don't think it really like holds up that well. It's like it's also like there's stuff that were earlier on that did that kind of skateboardy thing that were more interesting, like the Faction and JFA and like Aggression. But when it started going more into like the metal side of things, I think that's like when people say like the scenes kind of died. But it's funny that people say the scenes died because they were probably like bigger than like anything. I mean, if Gangrene could have afforded to take like mini ramps on tour with them, I don't think they could afford it. I think that's like part of the lore is that they did, and then they were like, we can't afford this. But it was like a pretty big time for that kind of music, and and then on the other side, like stuff like Cro-Mag started going on tour with like Megadeth and Motorhead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how much of that was the thrash bands just championing the hardcore bands, and then those hardcore bands then getting like labels and budgets to do bigger things?
Yeah, I think that things like SSD, that was like some of those bands I think were shooting for it, and if someone like Motorhead had been like, "Hey, go on tour with us," then we would probably have a different history of SSD. We would maybe have like a better, I don't know if it would have been better, but maybe a better recorded version of them trying to be Motley Crue. Because it's not even a good sounding record. Like
no,
like the one with like the SSD logo riding down the road. How We Rock, is that the one? It's just bad. Like I don't think I've actually ever met that said they liked that record. I mean, I feel like it's always a joke, and I love SSD. Like, I mean, I love Kids Will Have Their Say, and I mean, I love that more than shit. Give It Away, Get It Away. But
we had
y'all talked to John about that one, right?
Yeah. And then afterwards we got a tweet from Al Baril's wife saying we didn't know what we were talking about, and we like misspoke and like said there were maybe 2 vocalists on it, and like she was like, these idiots didn't even know the timeline of the band. I was like, well, it's not a history podcast, so
yeah. It's also kind of like the weird thing about that time frame too is like it also, a lot of that era hasn't been like not cultivated might be the right word. Like I don't feel like there's a lot of people like no one really likes it, that era, so no one's really keeping it alive. So it's kind of hard to find out information about any of these records, even to today. Like if I look up like SSD How We Rock, like there's not a whole lot of like history on it, or there wasn't like the last few times I probably haven't done this in years because it's bad. But like you can't find a crazy amount about it. Like it's like there's one paragraph.
Yeah.
It says, How We Rock was the third release from SSD. It was rooted in the hardcore sound, but exhibited overt heavy metal characteristics, such as relatively high number of lengthy guitar solos. That is all they say about it. And it's like there's no history about it. It's like, so no one likes it. So whatever she wants to say. And then you should go look at the arcade-looking fucking cover of Break It Up.
Yeah.
Like that shit looks like you went. I mean, that doesn't mean anything to y'all, but there's this arcade place in Wilmington called Jungle Rapids, and essentially, like if you were in the early '90s and you like went in the corner and looked at like old helicopter games that they still had, like that's what the artwork looks like.
It really does.
It's like you're going roller skating with your church, and you like right next to Burger Time. There's I want to play Break It Up.
Are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president?
What he's just a pixel, that's what it looks like. And I guess we're probably talking about this to not talk about the 7 seconds thing, but it's like going back to it. I don't think there's really anything to really talk about because I don't really feel like the band barely. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that they probably did a bunch during this time frame because it says they formed in 1980. 1, 2, 3,
They also formed with it was 2 sets of brothers, and then those other 2 guys wound up leaving, and then it wasn't until they got, I can't remember the name of the guys who joined the band later, but Skins, Brains, and Guts is when the band kind of took off because they had their lineup finally, and they were doing what they were going for. I did recognize 2 songs on this demo. I recognized Racism Sucks and I Hate Sports, and I do really like I Hate Sports. I like that there was a hardcore band in the 80s talking about sports suck, Mainly it was probably just a lashing out at jocks that they hated in high school, but it's funny to hear people talk about not liking sports, and now it's hardcore is dominated by hockey fucks and who everybody loves basketball now, so
yeah, that's weird to me. I don't know. I feel I remember when I was a young punk kid, I remember this one kid came to class and he had Asics on or something, and he said he was punk, and I got mad at him because I was you don't wear skate shoes, you're not wearing Converse, you're a sellout,
You're not even wearing Vans.
Yeah, and it seems so stupid now, but yeah, I don't remember people being as obsessed with sports and stuff like that and into punk, but I don't know.
I mean, in all reality, it doesn't really matter. You can whatever the fuck you want.
It doesn't, but Like it's something I've had to like just kind of like I'm way more into like baseball now than I was as like a kid. But it's just funny. Like but it's funny too coming from them. Like I hate sports, and I always thought of them as kind of like an introduction to kind of like jockey youth crew.
Right. That's mine. I imagine like there's a ton of 7 Seconds fans who love hockey. Like it just seems like a band that like people who like sports. You know, I see a big overlap in sports fans and 7 Seconds fans as far as on the Venn diagram of.
I bet they love sports now.
I would not.
I would bet. I mean, and it's also like I wonder if they were like almost like secretly into it in that time frame. Anyways, you know, like I feel like that's like the thing. It was. It's like people were like, yeah, I don't watch sports. You know.
I did appreciate Racism Sucks. I know there were quite a few songs about race in early 80s hardcore, most notably Guilty of Being White and White Minority, and like it's just like
I think like they definitely were less cringe in that respect. Like I think some of their politics like aged better, like even like not just boys fun, and like I think that's I mean I think that they kind of deserve more respect than they get nowadays. I feel like they're almost like forgotten in a way. Like I think enough people like 7 Seconds, but
I wanted to point out some of the song titles on this demo are "Cops Are Criminals," "Racism Sucks," "Abortion," which I'm assuming is positive, just given the context of the other lyrics.
Do we have the lyrics to that?
I'd like to look it up.
I'm looking at the lyrics to Racism Sucks, and the very first line is not a wise choice. He says the N-word in the first line of the song. It's like, I get it. The sentiment's there. It says, "Do you think that all blacks are N-words?" And it's like, I get the sentiment. But just don't say the word, dude.
I feel like you almost have to just look at that in the context of the time.
Yeah.
I think that there was like a weird thing in punk, and it still went on into the 90s. Like even like when you look at like all records, which, you know, the 90s obviously, but you know, like there's things where the whole song will basically read like it's kind of wrong-minded, but then if you go like the last stanza, and then it says something that's basically like, you're a stupid redneck, basically. Yeah. But if you disregard everything, you think it's basically a song. You know, it's like it doesn't, you know, really make sense. But it's like but I think the problem is when a lot of people will read it and they won't read the last stanza, and so then you get like the kind of dumb NoFX fans that even don't even realize like the humor that they had and their stuff that, you know.
The last line in that song is kill the KKK, destroy Martin Webster, kill the KKK, destroy Ronald Reagan.
Nice.
So like that's pretty awesome. Who's Martin Webster? That's like a reference that's not going to really make a lot of sense to.
I don't know. Like that would be interesting to kind of like kill Martin Webster. I wonder if that's like a local person.
He was a British political figure, a leader of the far right movement.
He's part of the national
but that's so like weird for someone from Reno, Nevada to like reference.
There's a whole verse in this song. So there's a whole verse in this song. It's about England. It's like in England, there's the National Front, headstrong bunch. These fucking C words. I don't want to say it. Yeah, with Webster as their figurehead, they liberate Hitler as he lies dead. So like, it's weird that they would even be like super aware of England's like.
They're probably listening to a lot of Clash.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I wonder, so Abortion Car was the song that you were talking about?
Oh, it's just called Abortion. I don't know if maybe they have another song.
It sounds, I mean, this is what Discogs calls it, Abortion Car. But Abortion lyrics, 7 seconds. See. I don't know if I can find them.
Yeah, I don't see the lyrics for that demo specifically.
I don't think that song made it to anything else either, so...
Yeah, I mean, who knows at that time? But because it's, I don't know, almost probably better off not knowing. But I'd say for the most part, I feel like they were pretty ahead of their time in terms of what they're actually talking about. Like, that's it's a very broad sense mentioning British politics in a Nevada band, and also because it's like with Minor Threat, it was it's like it's so weird now with Guilty of Being White, but it's like you almost have to think about it in the context of them being like 15 years old and like an all black school. And then also kind of like the weird kind of sarcasm that kind of plays into it too. But it's like 7 Seconds had this weird ability to like think beyond it, which is like doesn't make any sense. Like
I do like that it almost stands better today than a lot of their contemporaries at the time. Like I have the song Cops Are the Criminals. Like that's kind of a pretty like fun title for a song, and like a lot of like Minor Threat songs were just about being straight edge, and I guess there were probably a lot of 7 Second songs about that too. But like, it looks like 7 Seconds were trying to say a little more, and I mean maybe they weren't the most I don't know eloquent, right? But they were getting the right point across. So
I think that 7 Seconds' issue could have been really throughout their whole career that I don't know if musically, and great musicians, but I don't know if really like for what they intended to say, if they were like up to snuff as musicians as much as what they were trying to peddle. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they didn't make good music. They made great music for a long period of time, but it's like, Fugazi even, like, Ian went on to Fugazi, and, like, that's, like, a way more outside of the realm there. So it's, like, it kind of stunted at a certain point, which I don't know if that's really good or bad.
We are running low on time because, Dylan, you actually need to leave in about 15 minutes, don't you?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and rate this. I'll go first. It's a demo, but it's so hard to listen to. I'm gonna give it a 2.0 based on it's just a demo. Like I want to give it like a 1 or less than 1 just because it's so unenjoyable to listen to. But because it is a demo, I feel like they deserve a little more credit. So I'm gonna give it a 2.0.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5 because it is a demo, and I think that it's I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard to kind of judge it, so I don't really even want to judge it. And it feels like it's like if I rate it too low, I'm like hurting a baby. Like I don't think it deserves it. It's like there's so much good. Like I don't know. Like going back to like the Stranglers, I don't know. I'll need to listen to more of their music to really make a better representation. But I know that 7 Seconds ended up being amazing. So I'm going to almost like give it a little pass.
Yeah, I would give it about a 2.5, kind of in the same, just like it's a demo. So you really do have to treat it, hold it with kids' gloves. And but what you can hear through the lousy production is pretty good.
Yeah. There is some surprisingly good guitar work on here, especially for a demo. I was like, hey, I like what they're doing guitar-wise. And a lot of hardcore at this time tends to just do like those scales that like every hardcore band does. And they do that too, but there is something a little more substantial here too. So
I'd like to think, a better recording would have brought a lot out, but it also could, if you heard it better, you might be more like, like even like it would be... people love this album, but it would maybe sound more like Legless Bull or something by GI, and I think that's like the worst Government Issue. I love Government Issue, but it's not the era I want to listen to. So I think it's like maybe this is how it should exist,
Maybe just raw.
Yeah.
All right. So that'll do it for this week. Next week we are going back 1 year and covering the year 1980, and we got number 27 on the album charts, and it is the Psychedelic Furs and their self-titled album Psychedelic Furs. And for our EP, we're going to do number 16, and it is Teen Idols and their EP, Minor Disturbance. So we'll see what the difference is as far as like early.
Those are both better choices.
Right? Yeah.
This is very, very rude that you did this to me.
Well, we gave you
a
a list to
blast.
choose from, so.
Yeah, I did it to myself. But I don't know. But it was kind of fun hating on the Stranglers. I'm gonna listen to more Stranglers, and sorry, Hugh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being game to listen to some very rough stuff.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back on and give you some better choices of albums to talk about.
You're just giving me equally as bad choices, and I will.
Well, we call Josh for the bad records.
That's fine. I watch bad movies all the time for the same purpose, so it is really my aim.
Tell us where can we buy your records? Where can we buy stuff you've put out? What do we need to follow?
Directly from Self-Aware, so selfawarerecords.com. It's probably better to go directly to our web store. We're kind of we have to do a lot of online work and kind of clean things up. But just selfawarerecords.com, and everything for the most part is on Spotify with Late Bloomer, All Right, and most Self-Aware Records releases. The Late Bloomer Records pretty well distributed, but you can get it through 6131 Records, and the new All Right EP you can get through Black Number.
Awesome. And I'm actually going to go see John Russell tonight. Knowing's playing in Winston-Salem, so I'm going to go see him tonight.
I'm going to set up, and I'll see him tomorrow. So
yeah.
Well, as if we're recording.
Right, yes. This will come out in 2 weeks. So.
Okay. I won't see him tomorrow then.
Right.
Or who knows? I feel like I see him every 3 weeks, even though he lives in Richmond now.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show. And, it was fun.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Your boy Captain America over here. The best of the best of the best, sir. With honors. He's just really excited, and he has no clue why we're here. That's very funny to me. Y'all ain't laughing, though.